Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mitch Taco Bell. I'm your host. We're Tall Tales with Taco, another exciting Tuesday evening where I am bringing on a hero. This guy's a hero in my mind. He's made general, went from enlisted all the way up to general, special forces, and now running for office up in New Hampshire. And I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to have General Don Bolduc on. And General, without further ado, I'd like to bring you on the show, sir. Thank you so
Hey,
much for coming on.
how you doing? Take my
Doing
glasses off.
fantastic. I'd love to take my glasses off too, but the problem is, as a pilot, I got to have it for that near vision. I can't see comets or to be able to do something here and bring photos up or whatever I need to put up. But this is a fantastic deal because special forces is near and dear to my heart. I've got a good friend, Gene Pugh, who is the part of the Special Forces Association down here in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Mhm.
And one day we would have these big charity events down here. We have some pretty big ones, as a matter of fact. And one year I was the chairman of the Dallas Military Ball, which is a joint services ball, Army, Navy, Marines. And that year happened to be the Marines. So imagine I'm walking back from the ball. My wife is upstairs in the hotel room, sound asleep. I've got everything put away, everyone to bed that should be going to bed. As I walk up, I get shanghaied by a bunch of special forces dude, like little spider hole dudes. They just opened up the door, grabbed me, chuck me in the room. And I didn't leave that room until like 3:34 in the morning, plied with many adult beverages. And the stories I heard from these Vietnam vets was just phenomenal. So I've got a big heart, soft spot in my heart for all you special forces folks. And just tell everyone, how did you even decide you wanted to be special forces, and then give a little background on what the Q course is like, because most people don't realize how long it takes.
Well, that's a great question, and I I don't get asked that a lot, but when I do, I answer it like this. I was 1968 rolls around, and I'm sitting in the living room. My uncle is in Vietnam, my mom's brother, so I can remember Vietnam being discussed a lot during this time frame. Now, let's realize at this time I'm only 5 years old. Okay,
Right.
so let's put it in perspective. So I'm 5 years old. I'm sitting there, and the Green Berets with John Wayne is a movie that's been highlighted. My grandfather wanted to watch it. My grandfather's a big John Wayne fan. Obviously, a lot of us are and were, and I think those that weren't even old enough to know him after they see a few of his movies can understand why he's so popular in our American culture. But nonetheless, we watched this movie. I'm in my, fatigues. I have my tripod machine gun. I got all the pillows set up, and I'm watching this. Now, I have some of this in memory, but most of it is in the storytelling that my grandfather did.
No,
And
wait.
he
Did you
just
have your
started out,
GI Joes? Did you have your
huh?
GI Joes?
Oh yes, oh yes. We had them all set up. Now I had my younger brother there, who
Right.
was 3 at the time.
Uh huh.
So we're both sitting there. He's dressed up. I'm dressed up, and there it was, the Green Berets. And from that point on, I always found that to be very intriguing. And as I did more reading about it as I got older, um, and the heroes like Gene Pugh and another guy that I met as a result of running for campaign, David Carr. He also served in Afghanistan the same time I was in Afghanistan, but he had been retired by that time. So he was a young captain on the ground. Same time, probably Gene was on the ground, or at least overlapping or similar times. And these guys were really my heroes, right? They were the guys that really set the standard for future special operators like myself. And we always held them in very, very high regard, and went to, the Special Forces Association functions, and we did our modular demonstrations, and the
Hmm.
Vietnam War veterans would come, and my first platoon sergeant, um, was a um, special forces sergeant on the ground during Vietnam as well, back in 1981. So I was like, kind of in awe of these guys, right? They had the combat experience and so on and so forth, and these were the guys that really, really set standards for us. And when we got into Afghanistan, we used a lot of the same tactics, techniques, procedures that they used.
Mhm.
We used and modeled a lot of our fire bases after their ideas and what they did. We used the CBs in the same way they did. We just transferred a lot of their their trade craft over to what we were doing in Afghanistan. And the more we did that, the more successful we were. And so my hat's off to them for,
Setting the
what they
standards. I
did, how
mean,
they had to operate, and um, they're, true American heroes.
well, it started in the 60s with Kennedy, if I
Hmm.
remember right. He organized and authorized
1961, September 19th,
the Green Berets to go in. And
a mark of
you guys,
distinction in the
yeah,
fight
yeah.
for freedom. Yeah.
I mean, everybody thinks, when I think Green Beret, I think snake eater. I mean, Neanderthal with a big stick. But when you meet all the operators and different people that I've met over the years in Iraq or Afghanistan, language specialists, medics, um, helping cultural stuff, win the hearts and minds, right?
Hmm.
And would you say
Well,
that that was probably one of the greatest mission assets that you all had?
yeah, I mean, Aaron Banks started it all off, in 1952, over there in Europe, the defense against, the Soviet Union, and how special forces, it was 10th Special Forces Group at the time, would, train, stay behind forces, and, do unconventional warfare in the rear area, and strategic reconnaissance, direct action, all these different things um, that have become part of our mission set. But it wasn't until 1961, General Yarborough, the famous, visit from JFK, and, a
So,
presidential award, headgear, a Green Beret, um, you know, uh, you know, uh, it was just, it was, and he said, I mean, in his speech, a mark of distinction, a symbol of excellence in
yeah,
the fight for freedom. And he wanted a small force that he could put into areas that we, as the United States, weren't necessarily at war with, and do, have strategic impact. And a lot of it uh, was, organizing the team in such a way so that you had an engineer that could blow things up and build things.
right.
You had a medic who could save a man's life in combat, but could also deliver medicines and dentistry and life-saving medical techniques in the villages. You had communication sergeant who could, put all kinds of different communications gear together if you had to communicate, but could also understand, how to put communication systems together in underdeveloped areas.
Mhm.
You had so we got engineer. You had the weapons sergeant, right? The weapons sergeant who, not only could, understand all different kinds of weapons, employ them, be experts, make sure that everybody in the team was an expert with the weapons, but, could also teach, advise, assist, teach, train our indigenous forces to do, the same things, and defend themselves in a village construct, because everybody needs security. So, and then
How
you
many
got
how
the
many
team
folks
leader.
are on a team?
Yeah.
I mean,
And then
no,
you
how
got a
many
team
people are
leader.
on a team?
Yeah. And the team leader is in charge. We came up with, as time went on, a warrant officer to be the assistant detachment commander. But the backbone of the team is the team sergeant, right?
Right,
The
right.
master sergeant. He's the man, right? And boy, I tell you what, if you got a good team sergeant, uh, you know, as a team leader, you got an easy gig. It's just a matter of listening and learning, and leading. You got to be a leader, right? And that's what they expect from you, as an officer on the team. They want you to be a leader. They want you to be able to present the team in a positive light to the higher echelons of the command, so that team is the go-to team, or because the guys, the NCO is going to make it happen for you. They do it all the time, and they're the ones on the team forever, right? I mean, they
Sure.
make up the team
Continuity.
forever. The officers are hired help, right? We come, we go, and you got to really understand that too, when it comes to the dynamics of the team. So
Were you an officer or enlisted when you went
I was
through
an
the?
officer I was an officer when I went into special forces.
But you
Um,
started out, if I remember right, you graduated in 81. I was 84.
I did. I
And
graduated from high school. 11 days after high school, went in the Army as a private sergeant. Army sent me to school and got my commission in 1988. And then by 1993,
Mhm.
I was out of Special Forces training and at 5th Special Forces Group. And I was so delighted, so honored. It was just unbelievable experience. And what I loved about Special Forces is, it really is. The song really is true. It's true to this day. Well, I don't know about today, but I know at least when I went through, and at least for a long period after that, hey, about 33% of the people that went through passed, right?
Mhm.
So you'd have, my selection class started out with 400, and it attrited down to about 33%, right?
How long does that take? I mean, I know you have the Q course,
Mhm.
but so the Q course, what is that, 3 months?
The Q course, it depends on what your MOS is, because it takes about 2 years to produce a special forces medic, because these guys are trained in everything, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, they outperform doctors in emergency rooms when they go for their advanced trauma life-saving courses, right? I mean,
Right?
training, which is a requirement to keep their certification, right?
Uh-huh.
ATLS, we call it. And every medic has to go every other year in order to maintain their trauma certifications. And they do dentistry, they do veterinarian stuff, they do basic medic. I never had a worry on the ground, point of injury, if my guys were going to be able to get the right medical attention with the medics that we had, special
Mhm.
operations medics we had on the ground. It was incumbent upon me to make sure we got somebody there in short enough period of time to get them out of there, so there wasn't undue suffering, right?
Sure.
And that was something that, at the higher levels of command, you're very worried about the amount of suffering that goes on from the stabilizing the individual at point of injury, and then getting them back to a higher level of medical care. And uh, we got some
Get
real horror stories about guys that suffered way too long. And I'm telling you what, you had a tourniquet applied to you at any time in your life, you know how painful that tourniquet is. And so
Wait, have you
getting that guy back or gal back as fast as you can is hugely important because of the pain that they're in.
right. I've got, John Wayne Walding is, Special Forces Afghanistan, took a round, blew his leg off, had a tendon holding it together, and he took his boot off, flopped his leg back over, put the tourniquet on, attached his leg to his thigh, and stayed in the fight for another 2 hours. I mean,
Hmm.
just amazing, amazing guy. Um, I'm privileged enough to own one of his custom 9 millimeters that he
That's
has.
I mean, these guys are just heroes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're unbelievable for me. I you mentioned how long it takes. So for an officer, you're in the Q course for 6 months. You got language school for 6 months, and you got advanced course, infantry officer advanced course, or armor advanced course.
Mhm.
They sent you to one or the other. I went to the infantry officer advanced course. That was my choice. I didn't want to go to the armor course. I was in 5th group. I had already been to the tank commander's course. I had already had my fill of armor up to here. And so I said, hey,
Oh,
I'm
come
going
on, sir. What's wrong with armor? Armor's cool.
Nothing's wrong with armor, but I mean, I just rather go to the infantry. I'd rather go back to Fort Benning.
Right.
Anyways, so you got that 18 months basically before you're on a team, and as an officer, 2 years for a medic. My brother was a medic, and on an SF team in 5th Group, and my other brother was a team leader and went back to be a battalion commander in 5th Group, and I went to be a battalion commander at 1st of the 3rd. 1st of the 3rd was in 5th Group, right? It was a battalion that was taken from 5th Group to go start up 3rd Group when we started up 3rd Group in 1989, 1990, something like that, before my time anyway. So I had the legacy battalion, right, from 5th Group. So started out, did some time in 10th Group, 5th Group, 3rd Group, and so that's unusual for officers to spend time over different groups. And I think that's one of the shortcomings of, what we do with our officers is, we don't give them exposures to the other groups because groups are different. 7th Group is different from 10th Group, from 3rd Group, and so on and so forth. And I think for an officer, as you move up the ranks, you get a more of appreciation of the different groups. The NCOs now, hey, they're the backbone of the teams, area specialists. The officer can do his thing, right? It's just different, right? And the NCOs, they're the continuity, right? They're the guys that know. And if an officer knows, if he's got half a brain, he's going to go in there and he's going to listen, right? Do 3 things: listen, learn, and lead, right? And on an SF team, they want you to lead, and you got to be that leader, and you got to be that strong leader and not fall for seemingly logical arguments or suggestions or things. Represent your team well to higher headquarters. Do the briefings well. Make sure the battalion commander says, "Man, I like that ODA. That guy's squared away. He must have a good team sergeant, right? Prepare him for all kinds of stuff, right?" And so, that. I mean, it's the train.
So 2 years.
Mentioned selection. Selection was a smoke show. I loved it. Every single day was 16 days of a smoke show, and it was a lot of fun in my mind. But then again, it really challenged you in a different way than Ranger School, right?
Yeah.
2 different. You're looking at 2 different kinds of leaders and individuals that you want in a Ranger unit and that you would want in a Special Forces team, right? 2 different kinds of people in the and they do a great job. Both of them are a gut check, but Special Forces selection is a gut check in a different way.
And that was 16 days, the selection?
16 days. That's it. Boom. You're done. 16 days. I just couldn't believe how many people failed the PT test on day 1. I'm like, what? You guys didn't come prepared for this?
You didn't know this was coming, right? Oh yeah.
It's an Army PT test, for crying out loud. Now, the standards are higher. It's 240, I believe. It's not the Army minimum, right? So you go to selection, you already know you got to get a 240 minimum out of a 300, right? So get it on, baby.
When do they send you to jump school as well?
If you're not airborne qualified, you'll go through jump school. I think most of us, though, at least most of folks that I know were already, officers were already airborne qualified. I was jump master qualified by the time I got to the Q course, being in the 82nd and doing all those jumps there, and then going to 10th Group and getting put through jump school at 10th Group. And I was in 10th Group as a staff officer on the staff, not SF qualified. And they saw in me the potential to go to Special Forces. So I got counseled by the battalion commander, and he said, "Hey, we'll get you in. And I said, all right. So I went to selection and passed and came back and PCS to the Infantry Officer Advanced course, and then on to Bragg to the Q course, and then off to language school, Egyptian Arabic I was taught.
Nice.
I tell you what.
Let me ask you this: what, for a young man listening to this program, what sports did you play that you found gave you the mental fortitude to be able to turn that switch off? I mean, for me, it was cross country and wrestling. But what sports did you play as a young guy that maybe somebody looking to go this path would go, you know what, I could try that?
Yeah. So I did, we had intramural sports and regular, junior varsity and varsity sports in my school. So intramural, I did wrestling and boxing. And I played football, I played baseball, and I played basketball.
Wow.
And so those are the sports that I did. But I got to tell you, what really toughened me up for any of my training in the military was Catholic school with Sister Lucille and working on our family farm and having to get up at dark 30 and take care of animals and cows and do all those things you have to do on a farm, right?
Right.
That made you appreciate hard work, put you outside in the weather, made you work with your hands in the dirt,
dark 30.
the rain. It didn't matter. Farming doesn't wait on good weather.
Right.
So it was just my upbringing, I think, and I grew up in a in a home where hard work and never quitting and character mattered a lot, and so I think that really helped me. When I went to basic training, okay, you're going to get me up at 4:30 in the morning, been there, done that.
Right.
You're going to yell at me, been there, done that. And you're going to feed me 3 squares a day. Hey, been there, done that, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
Sergeant Mule was my first drill sergeant. Staff Sergeant Mule. I'll never forget that guy, right? He was entertaining, and he was a good leader. I respected him a lot, and always remembered that the lessons they taught me in basic training about do your job, do it well, and then good things will happen.
So you go through the Q course. You're a special forces officer. You're with the group or a ODA assigned to a team, and 9/11 kicks off. Where are you, and how fast does it take the Army to get you in country and operating?
Well,
You're a major.
So I was at Fort Bragg. I was the operations officer at the time, major, just a young major. I had just finished up my company command time as major of Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group. Battalion commander brought me over to be the operations officer, the S3. So I was in that job, and we had a huge exercise to plan in Jordan. It was involving, about 6 different Arab countries, in 3 different Arab countries. I mean, it was huge. And we were planning this, and I'm sitting in my office a day or two before, a little over 24 hours before we were getting ready to go to Jordan. And I'm watching the television's on, and I see the plane crash into the tower. And then I'm like, what's going on here? And then I'm listening to the commentary, and then the other plane hits. And then I go down to the battalion commander's office, and I said, hey, sir, you got your television on here? Turn it on. And he turns it on, and we're like, holy crap. And then Colonel Mulholland, the group commander at the time, he started having a huddle with his battalion commanders and came back and said, hey, we're on a short string to do something. We don't know exactly what, but they're trying to figure out what exercises we're going to continue to do. And so it wasn't long after that President Bush decided to cancel every exercise except the one in Jordan. And that went from a 45-day exercise to a 30-day exercise. And then the battalion commander handpicked a small team to go from there to Uzbekistan, while the XO packed up the battalion to move it into Uzbekistan, K2, Khani Kashabad, which was going to be our area of operations. Now, this was like the third week of October at this point. Okay. And you already had the team on the ground that, the movie 12,
12 Horsemen.
12, what's it called?
It was 12 Horsemen, I think.
Yeah, 12
Special
strong.
Forces
12 strong.
Oh.
They were already there on the ground. And my brother's team was already on the ground in up near Kunar province. And then we were scheduled to be the team to go on the ground in the south with Hamid Karzai as the headquarters element for the two teams that were going to work the operation from the Pakistan border down in Shaman, Pakistan, up, and us from Tarankout down, and we were going to meet in Kandahar was the operational objective. So it didn't take long for us to get there. We're small, we're mobile, we know how to move. We get on airplanes, we load them up like that. Thing about the special ops is, while I was a team leader, I was gone most of the time. We were in some, a Middle Eastern country doing something most of the time. My wife was accustomed to me being gone. So when it came to loading up a team, an SF company, a battalion, they do it just like that and roll.
In the back of a C-130. Here we go, guys.
Boom, gone. And, that's what we did. And we got in there fast. We got on the ground. It was moving so fast that when we got on the ground, we were literally 72 hours ahead of our higher headquarters, commanded by Colonel Mulholland up in Uzbekistan. They couldn't keep up with us. We would just, the momentum and the movement on the ground was just so fast that by the time they got a report of ours and were able to digest it, we had already moved on from that location, right? And so it was really, it was really good SF stuff, right? You go in, remote area, surrounded by the enemy, surrounded by the populace, trying to make heads or tails of stuff. You're using donkeys, horses, Toyota Corolla, Toyota pickup trucks. You're turning anything you can, their motorcycles, into ways to get around. And so it was awesome. It was like, just use your initiative, use your ingenuity. What
was it like hooking up with Karzai when you first got over there?
Well, it was interesting. I tell this story because it's kind of a funny story. If you want to hear it.
Yeah, sure.
We're in Uzbekistan. We give our mission briefing, which we gave our mission briefing to ourselves because we had planned to do the mission briefing, but then nobody showed up for the mission briefing. So we gave it to ourselves. We were getting ready to get on our aircraft, and we get handed our embedder radios, which we had not trained with. We had not seen, hey, this is how you're going to communicate. So we're trying to figure it out on the airplane because we land and we were supposed to do a quick turnaround in the next period of darkness into Tarankout from Pakistan, airfield in Pakistan, Jacobabad. But what ended up happening, we're trying to figure this out in the plane with the commo guy, and you can imagine, right? New radios, they got to be filled, you got to be secure, you got to figure out how to do them. You got different antennas for this and different antennas for that. And it's satellite, and my gosh.
And so, the guy's going, I don't need any instructions. I don't need,
Yeah. I don't need no stinking instructions, throw
Yeah,
them
I
away.
could do this.
So we're trying to figure this out, but we get on the ground and weather delayed us one day. So we had an extra day to figure out our comms, which was good. We hook up with the air crew. They're taking us in on 2 MH-53s. We took a lot of fire coming in, a lot of ground fire coming in. One of the helicopters was hit, but it wasn't, significant enough to where it had to stop. We do this controlled crash landing, and our instructions were this: you're going to get on these helicopters, you're going to fly into an area outside of Tarankot, you're going to land, there's going to be a large formation of rocks, and there'll be some Afghans there, so make your way up and let them know who you are, and they're going to take you to Hamid Karzai. And I'm
Who's
like,
good guys? Who's
great,
bad guys? Right?
this is awesome, right? So you don't know. At this point, we're like Afghans. I mean, there was nobody with any Afghan experience on the team. We didn't know. We were reading all kinds of books that the Soviets had written, and all this other stuff. We're trying to catch up on everything. What does an Afghan look like? How do they eat? How do they, what's important to them? This, that, and the other thing. And so, we had a general idea, but I learned a key phrase I thought would be good to learn. As I approached him, I was going to ask him, take us to Hamid Karzai. It's as simple
Right.
as that. And I'm going it over in my head. And we get on the ground, we land, and it was not a very pretty landing. We rolled around in the back of this MH-53. We tumble out. There's dust everywhere. They take off fast. There's even more dust. Finally settles down. We get accountability of everything. We get our nods on, our night vision devices on, and we get in formation, and we, move in the direction that we're supposed to move in. And we do see this formation of rocks, and we start seeing figures. So I approach, and everybody else is in a security position, aiming their guns. And I get up to the guy, and they got their guns pointed right at me, right? And I have mine slung over my shoulder because I didn't want to start something, right?
Right. Sure.
And the idea was if they shoot me, our guys are going to unload on them, right? So I look at this guy, and I'm trying to think of this phrase, and all I could get out of my mouth was Hamid Karzai. And
take me to your lita.
Yeah, looking down the barrels of these guns, that's all I could think of, right? And they said, yeah. And so they grab us, and we move. We get in the back of what we call jingle trucks, and
right.
About an hour later, there we were sitting with Hamid Karzai, and planning our movement down to Kandahar, which was our operational objective, to take Kandahar back from Taliban, Al Qaeda down there. And we did it in intermediate movements, which the convoys were a disaster because they don't know what convoys are,
Sure.
The Afghans don't, and they're driving all over the place. And my battalion commander's like, Don, what is going on? We got to get control of this. This is crazy. Then we stop to pray. And he's like, what are we doing? I go, prayer time, So you just gotta, be flexible and, respect the culture, respect how they do stuff. And, what we did in order to control subsequent convoys was we put Hamid Karzai's truck towards the front, and we told all the Afghans that they couldn't pass Hamid Karzai's truck. And by God, they didn't. But if you turned around and looked at what was behind you, it was a mess. I mean,
those guys don't
everywhere.
Those guys, they don't plan.
Turning around, we got ambushed a lot. That's a country where every quarter mile you can get ambushed. So,
they don't plan, right? General. They don't plan at all. When we were out there, it'd be like, okay, so we're going out. How much gas do all the vehicles have? And the chief was like, police chief's like, Inshallah, they all full. They'll
Inshallah.
make it. If they don't, we'll get gas at the next town. Well, how about chow? Do you have chow to feed the men? Inshallah, we will be fed in
Inshallah. Yeah.
the town. God willing, we'll be fed.
Hmm.
That's just not going to work for me. What about what
We
about
had
this?
a
What about that? Inshallah,
we had a young
inshallah.
older Afghan. He was probably middle-aged Afghan who um, he only knew 3 words in English. He only knew 3 words,
Uh,
and I nicknamed him Elvis. And we nicknamed him Elvis because the 3 words he knew was, thank you very much. And so he would say, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But he was great. I mean, he was really
uh-huh.
good at organizing, and he kind of knew what he knew what my hand and arm signals meant. And he knew what we needed to do. And so
Mm.
he was really good. And he became like the guy that we relied on in order to do and handle all our logistical stuff. And he was really good at it. We had a guy that we named the sergeant major because he was really good at organizing these guys. When we had weapons dropped in and we needed to train them on weapons, he'd make sure that everything was set up so we could train them on how to take care of their AK-47s, and then we put them, I mean, basically it was a 360-degree range, so we just laid them down and showed them how to fight and showed them how to shoot as best we could.
Right.
But and that's what we did. We start out with 50 guys, and by the time we get 20 kilometers from Kandahar, we got almost 1,200 guys on the ground on our side because they
1,200
switched
Afghanis.
sides. Yeah, they switched sides, right? Which was something my boss really was never comfortable with. I get him up and I go, "Hey, sir, we just got about 600 people in yesterday." He goes, "Where they come from?" And I go, "Well, they were fighting us yesterday, but today they're on our side." And if it was Afghans, it was okay because that's what it was. They went with whoever was winning. And I go, "They're cousins and brothers of these other guys that we had,
Right.
And the village elder is blessing off on them. And I called it mud hut diplomacy. We'd get in there with Hamid Karzai, and he'd have the room would be packed with village elders, and they'd be discussing stuff, and we have a map on the ground, and we'd tell him what we were seeing, and he would be asking, "No, those are good guys. No, those are bad guys." And so we didn't drop any ordnance on anybody unless Hamid Karzai cleared it. And we had a really good system of clearing that because we wanted to minimize collateral damage and any civilians getting hurt unnecessarily. The Taliban would cover their cars with mud because they thought that packing their cars with mud would protect them from being seen.
From the IR, right?
From the IR, right? Yeah, it didn't work. But the interesting thing is when we got down to Kandahar and we got to Mullah Omar's headquarters, where we took the surrender of Najibullah and the Taliban, and I mean, it was actually Karzai that took the surrender, and the place, there was hundreds of mud-caked cars.
I just thought they were all mud-caked. I mean, I drove around in the dirtiest vehicle. They would tell me, "Hey, Colonel, you got to wash your vehicle." And I'm like, "I'm not washing my vehicle. It makes me stand out. I'm driving around in this Toyota Land Cruiser.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to be as dirty looking like the rest of these filthy cars. I don't want to stand out." And they're like, "Colonel, you had to go in and at Camp Eggers and get your car inspected once a week or whatever it was." And I'm like, "I'm not washing it, sir. You have to. I'm not washing it. Talk to my boss over at the embassy. I'm not washing my car." They were crazy.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, right?
Yeah, I'm driving around by myself, right? So the poor majors, lieutenant colonel and above, could self-drive in Kabul, which blew my mind, which made it easy. Otherwise, you had to have a battle buddy go with you to move, to go to a meeting at MOI or over at ISAF headquarters or whatever. So for lieutenant colonels and above, it was cool. You just jump in your vehicle and drive off to your meeting. Well, I'm thinking, how easy would that be for some dudes to roll up on Solo Taco, roll a hand grenade under there, blow my butt to smithereens. I come stumbling out of this dirty Land Cruiser, and nobody there to back me up. I'm gonna bleed out in the street. But yeah, yeah, some Army guy came up with that rule. That was pretty cool of him. 82nd Airborne guy, I think. But
Of
yeah.
course.
So the interesting stuff. People when they talk about when they think when we're over there, we're living in a foxhole. You at the time back then, you were living in a foxhole. You were
We
not
were.
even a foxhole, but a mud hut somewhere, right?
Yep. Laying on the ground. Yeah.
And I got to say, my tour in Iraq was different. It was a lot more death related stuff, and my tour in Afghanistan was not. It wasn't as horrible as Iraq, and I found I love the people. I
Mhm.
traveled a lot. We did the Afghan National Police. So as I traveled throughout the countrysides through the RTCs, and then we had these private helicopters with these Ukrainian pilots, these Hip 8s, and these dudes were flying nap of the earth. These guys flew back in the 80s, right?
Mhm.
They were, we're in Bamyan, and you're sitting there smoking a cigarette. I called them Boris Dorse and Chuck Norris because it was the pilot spoke English, the co-pilot didn't, the engineer that was cramped in there, he didn't either. And they smoked the really harsh Russian cigarettes, but he'd be like, I tell you what, Taco, you Americans, you'll never friggin' learn. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, these people do not understand the shit that you try to pull. You need to go in there and cut every single person's heads off. And I'm like, no, we can't do that, man. We got to win the hearts and mind. He goes, that's why you
Mhm.
lose, just like we did. You will lose again. This sucks. And I'm like,
It's interesting too because when we first rolled into Kandahar and we, went to Mul Omar's, we I'm going to set the record straight here too. We went there. We set up operations. We got Karzai. Now this was the 8th of December, 2001. Now on the 18th, he went up to Kabul to be placed as the interim prime minister based off of the Bonn agreement. And
right.
now, when we were coming down from Tarankout, all the places that we stopped to do the Mud Hut diplomacy, he was on the phone with all kinds of media folks, Wolf Blitzer and,
Right.
all these, he's talking to him. The Bonn conference would call, he'd talk to them because they're trying to figure out who they're going to make the interim prime minister. And then, of course, Karzai became the guy. And, that's a lot of pressure. I mean, you don't want anything to happen to this guy, right? I mean, you want
Yeah.
to keep him alive. And so I'll never forget that, out in in Firebase Rhino, where they had the airstrip, where the Rangers, at one point did a combat jump out there as a show of force, right?
Oh,
And now
okay.
Rhino was way away from the places, and that's where General Mattis, 1-star Mattis, comes in because he's going to take over the Kandahar airfield, and the Marines were going to secure the airfield. And so we actually brought Mattis in to meet with Karzai. We did that introduction, and Mattis wanted to drive his, all the Marine vehicles in through Kandahar and down into the, Kandahar airfield. And Karzai said, no way.
Really? Why is that?
Looked too much like Soviets. And he said, you're not going to be driving those armored vehicles and those vehicles through the town. So he had us set up, SF guys set up a work with him to bring him in a more discreet way. And so that's what we did. And so,
Yeah.
We got him set up down there at Kandahar Airfield, and they secured the airfield. And they were restricted to the airfield. Karzai would not let them operate outside the airfield. You'll secure the airfield, and that's all you'll do. And then he got Task Force Dagger up north with Mulholland, and then you had Task Force South down with Mattis, General Mattis, and that was Navy SEAL Commodore. Oh, by goodness, the name's going to escape me, but he ended up retiring a 3-star admiral. He was Mattis's deputy at CENTCOM. The name is, it's right there, but I can't pull it out. But
2 o'clock
nonetheless,
this morning. 2 o'clock this morning. It'll come back.
yeah, it will. And so he set up Task Force South, the SEALs, right, that were there to augment our, different special operations stuff that we were doing, because we had a number of mission sets to get accomplished. But and so we occupied with Sharzai at this time, who was named the interim governor of Kandahar, and we went to the mansion and we set that our headquarters up there. And I got to tell you, when we first got in there was nobody. There was nobody on the streets. There was, the bazaars, the souks were all empty. There was just nothing going on. And then as time went on, we got stuff reestablished. Businesses started opening and so on and so forth. And we would have, the naan bread brought.
Oh my God, that stuff was so good.
Wasn't it good? It was.
Yes, sir.
It was absolutely delicious. And so I'm up on. It's my turn to pull guard duty. I pulled it from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And I'm up there with my Afghan counterpart. And you could keep them awake simply by giving them a pair of night vision goggles, because they're just, they just can't believe that you can see like that, right?
Uh-huh.
So we're still scanning it. And, there's still no electricity really to be had there, because the Taliban just completely ruined the infrastructure there.
Right.
There wasn't even birds flying around. There wasn't even, dogs and cats or anything like that. It seemed to me to be a very bleak area. And then going into the soccer field where they did all their killings, that was even worse. I thought that place was 10 degrees colder than anywhere else in Kandahar. But nonetheless, I'm up there one night and I'm looking through my goggles at about 5 a.m. and I see that the bakery where we get our bread every morning is opening up. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm just scanning and I'm watching, and I see him mixing it in the big bowls and getting ready to put it in the beautiful, brick ovens. And then I see this thing that I was just completely shocked about, right?
Uh-huh.
He gets all the stuff in the bowl. He mixes it up. He gets it all in there, and he gets in the bowl and starts mashing it with his feet. Okay. Now,
it tastes so good.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you what.
He washed his feet at prayers. Don't worry about it, General.
By that time we had been getting, packages in, and my wife had sent peanut butter and marshmallow and, different kinds of jams. And I had introduced people to the Fluffernutter with naan bread, typical sandwich eaten here in New England. But I saw that and I was like, I don't think I can eat that bread anymore. And what am I going to tell the other guys? I don't want to ruin it for them.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there and they go, oh, hey, here's your bread, sir. And I go, oh, no, thank you. They go, are you kidding me? You're not going to have your Fluffernutter with your mocha that you make every day? And I go, nah, not today. And they go, what's wrong? And I go, well. And so I said, all right, I'll tell you the story. So I tell them the story. And they go, yeah, that's bad, but nah, I don't care. And so I just started eating
That's so
bread,
good.
Right?
Yeah,
They said the brick oven burned it all off. No problem.
5-second rule, boss. Don't worry about it. My wife is into the whole medical show, mystery diagnosis, monsters inside of me, and all this weird stuff. And so right before I deployed, I'm laying in bed with her and we're watching something about flies. It was talking about all the diseases that flies carry or whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And my first week on the job, I jump in a helicopter with my German counterpart, Bundestag, Gestapo, whatever police, whatever they called them, the police guys, and because it was I was at Combined Security Transition Command with General Cohn.
There you go.
So I'm at
God bless him.
See, stick it to you. And
Yes,
we
you
go out
stick it
there.
to you.
See, stick it to you. We go out there and we drive 2 hours from Jalalabad, and we're up there by the Tor Bora Mountains, and we're up at elevation. I mean, we're like 5,000 to 6,000 feet up there, and they've built one of those HESCO Fort Apache the Bronx. And we go in, and the supply guy had already given me the brief about, hey, sir, here's the deal. We built the Afghans. It's really, really nice place. But the guys haven't quite figured out the toilets yet. So all the gravel we laid in the inside, they used that to to go to the bathroom. We clogged up the stuff, so we had to cut the pipes. And eventually we dug a big giant slit trench. But we're trying to tell them not to put the kitchen next to the
Yeah,
the bathhouse, and the restroom, but they don't listen to us. Okay, fine. And then he was telling me about how they steal the tires and brand new tires on the vehicle, sell them, get rotted old tires. Then a month later, try to tell us that we need new tires. Like, no, 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 man. You have brand new slicks on those things. And as we're walking through, I've got my interpreter, and and the police chief is like, and I'm, oh, Colonel, we are so proud because the beautiful place that we have, and of course we have the comfort trailers here. And at the whole time, the flies are going in my mouth and dabbing under my glasses into my eyeballs, and I'm like doing this because all I could think of was that show my wife watched, and I'm like swatting flies, and I felt like that dude in Indiana Jones when the Germans talking the fly. You watch it fly right in his mouth. They go in
right.
there for that moisture quick, man. They're kamikaze flies. So I'm sitting there doing this, and I know exactly where the flies are coming from, General. They're coming from that hole underneath the comfort trailer where they're doing their business. So as we're walking on, oh, the police chief has bought the lamb for lunch for us. And I look over, and this lamb, this black lamb, is hanging there. And the dude has the knife, and he goes to take a whack of meat off, and all the flies go whoosh,
Whew,
and it's
right?
red, and it's red,
Yes.
and then it goes shh, and it's black. And I go, oh my God, I think I'm gonna throw up a little bit in my mouth. And so
Hmm.
I tell the guy as kindly as I could, tell the police chief, Tashakor, thank you so much, but we have lunch with the general back in Jalalabad. We
Tashakur,
have to go back. And the guys kind of look at me, his eyes real big. He's like, Colonel, I cannot tell him that. I cannot tell him that. Well, why not? Go ahead, tell him. Oh, because he has spent his own money to buy that lamb, and that would be a big insult. So we would, we must have lunch with this
you're eating it.
fine. And I'm like, all right, fine, screw it. And so we had lunch. Best food I've ever had in my life.
Cipro.
That, I was gonna say, so I'm taking the daily doxycycline,
Yeah,
and my partner is on the Monday malaria pill, and and by the time we come back, we're driving in the road. It's not a much a road, and we're in the two contractor up armored pickup truck, deuce and a half, and
yeah.
or dualies, and the Humvees, the Hawaiian Guard are escorts, and they got a Humvee in the front and Humvee behind us. And all of a sudden, the guy's like screaming, "Got to stop! Got to stop! Got to stop!" And and we stop, and he just pops out, and everyone's like, "What? What?" And this German jumps out of the truck, and he is ripping his pants off, and he's right there, and we're like, we're out in the middle of nowhere, bad man land. The police chief got hit by an IED not too long
It's
ago.
not going to wait for that.
Oh man, yeah. You know what? I'd much rather have him do it out there than in the truck with us. But by the time we got back, he was in the head the entire night.
Uh,
By the time we got him back on the helicopter, they made him sit in the back because he soiled himself. And when we got him in the hospital, he was super dehydrated. And I asked the doc, "Hey, how come I ate the same stuff he ate? How come I'm still alive?" And he goes, "Well, are you taking the Monday malaria pill or the daily doxycycline?" I go, "Daily." He goes, "All spectrum antibiotic. There you go, baby." And
mhm.
that was it. I was religious about taking those pills every single day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was
Yeah. We'd
bad.
come out of everything, and my medic would be right there. Hey, sir, take these. Hey, sir, take these. Hey, sir, take these. I mean, he'd just give us all these stuff, after we eat because, and I've been so sick in Afghanistan that, I mean, my hair hurt, and it just happens, you're going to,
Did they
You
give you
just
did
wait
they give
for
you
it.
the Vermox? Did they give you the Vermox when you left to get rid of the bugs? Because
Oh yeah.
all the Shures we went to, and all the tea, chai tea, and all that stuff I ate and drank. Ooh, yeah,
hmm And how
yeah.
about, I mean, just the stuff that you're breathing in too, right? Um,
Oh
I
God,
mean,
burning the tires for the heat in the
yeah,
wintertime.
burning
Uh,
those things. I mean, out at our fire bases, the Afghan that made the most money on the fire base was the shit burner, right? And keeping those things clean so our guys didn't get sick, right?
yeah,
It was,
yeah.
just just is
It
what it
it
is. It's a third world
it made
country,
for
seventh
interesting.
century infrastructure.
Yeah,
It's not good, not good at
and you know what?
all.
It works. It works for them. Um,
Yeah, it does.
where the water and stuff will kill us. They are
Yep.
hardy folks, and those guys would last a long time. And us trying to go in there to bring democracy.
Yeah.
I mean, the Italians were doing the judicial stuff, which they failed.
The
The
Germans, the
Germans were
law
supposed to do the
enforcement,
police.
failure.
They failed. We took over. The army took over the entire mission there, training the Air Force, training the Army, training the Afghan National Police, the ANCOP, and the whole 9 yards. It was
We created
yeah,
something that they never used to defend themselves with. They don't know how to do it. It operated at over 100% of their GDP. There was no way they could sustain it. Um, and that's why in Afghanistan, the period that we did village stability operations and created the Afghan local police was the most successful for security. And
hmm
when the Obama administration in 2014 decided to change that, it went to hell in a handbag. And um, President Trump wasn't left with a whole hell of a lot to work with, and rightly so. He was looking for a way to get out, but um, he didn't get a second chance at it. And Biden comes in and then completely blows it, right?
yeah,
And there's no way to talk. I don't care if you're I mean, I'm not speaking politically here. He blew it. His State Department blew it, and the senior leaders in our military blew it. And I'm
right.
not afraid to pin all of that on them because it's their fault.
Well, it bothers me. We gave them 2 generations. I mean, we gave 20 years of our lives, a lot longer than the Russians gave over there. And there were people that grew up, kids that we used to do the VCR program, the Visitors Community Relations. There were kids that grew up in freedom. I mean, for the most part,
Mhm.
kids able to go to school, girls able to go to school.
They
Some
saw
still
the
had battery
difference.
acid. There was a difference. Women voting, women doing stuff. It, it was something to give them hope. But
Mhm.
when we left like that, I fear it has damaged our reputation and our credentials around the world for I don't
It
know
has.
how many allies who would trust what we say. I mean, look what we did to Syria and to
Nobody does. Nobody trusts what we say.
yeah, Libya, and I mean everything that we're doing over there has been dismal in terms of
Everything in every
taking care of
place.
stuff.
We have undermined our credibility, and you know this was leadership's fault. This was general officer level fault, and I include myself in that crowd. Um, we didn't do the right thing. The men and women that we asked to do these missions from day one to the end, they did them, and they did them honorably, and they're the heroes.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that that no matter what strategy or what policy or what operational approach or how their hands were tied, they did what they were asked to do. They did it honorably. They did it well. They completed their mission, and they have nothing to hang their heads. It's us at the senior leader level that we should be ashamed of ourselves.
Sir, what some of the stuff, the PTSD and or PTS, however you want to say it, the effects of the war. I wife always asks why I volunteer or do stuff. Well, I feel like hey, I was lucky. I came home. I came home whole.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my friends that didn't, my buddy that shot himself a few years ago because of the care that he was under, and I feel that we've really let our guys down when we give them all these drugs, antidepressants and antipsychotics, and then they go off of it because they don't like the way it makes them feel when they drink a beer. It
Hmm.
makes them feel weird, and all of a sudden now he's shooting up high and shooting down low. He does something that he thinks is the end of the world, and he pulls the trigger when it would have been over the next day, easily.
Hmm.
But too many of our servicemen and women I think, are falling into that gap. I read somewhere you're doing some stuff with Truth to the Power and some other stuff to help the PTS, and you experienced it yourself. So can you go into that? Give some insight and hope.
Sure. I mean, I did 10 rotations over there, almost 70 months in Afghanistan, and total of 81 months total combat time, if you include other areas and other times during my career. But at the end of the day, um, the effects of combat are mental, physical, and spiritual. I got wounded twice. I had to have both hips replaced because of bomb blasts, and 3 discs in my neck because of helicopter crash. And so I've been broken up and put back together. And mentally, um, it started taking a toll. And my wife started noticing it around 2008. And she's a nurse, and she did a lot of studying in this area. And she said, "Hey, you really need to go get some help." Well, geez, 2008, you're not going to go get any help. I mean, the military, I didn't have any patience for that. It wasn't until 2010 that they started thinking about things and thinking about traumatic brain injury, but
Hmm.
still not, dealing with post-traumatic stress. Meanwhile, suicide rates are going up inside the military. And it got to a point where in 2013, I had started my tour in AFRICOM as the operations officer there, that my wife had kind of drawn the line with me, right? And I said, all right, I'll go get some help. And I knew this nurse. Her name is Sarah McNary. She was up at Launchstool, and I knew she was doing a lot of work with special operation guys, um, kind of leading edge stuff for post traumatic stress and TBI. And so I went up and talked to her, and I got evaluated, and I got diagnosed with post traumatic stress, and I got diagnosed with traumatic brain injury. And I knew I had traumatic brain injury because of the 2 head injuries that I had had in Afghanistan from the blast and from the helicopter crash. So I already knew that. I was hospitalized for it in Kandahar Airfield Hospital there. So, anyways, I said, hey, this has got to stay under the radar, right? I mean,
Sure, you general officer. That's going to
yeah,
go over like a pregnant pole vaulter.
yeah. And so kept it under, and I went through, and my wife did it with me. And the funny thing is, being a general, I can go to a doctor's appointment launch stool and no one's going to bat an eye. I can arrange my schedule and take that time to go do it. And oh, by the way, we had AFRICOM elements up at Ramstein, so I could always hit 2 birds with 1 stone, right? As the
Hmm.
operations officer, I could go over to, you know, um, go over to Air Force Africa there and meet with them, and I could meet with our crisis response force, and I could do a number of things that related to duty, and then go to a doctor's appointment, right?
Hmm.
And so I kept it quiet, but it was when I took command of Special Operations Command Africa that I realized I was a coward, and that this wasn't right for me to be able to get help, and other men and women not being able to get help. And so I got with Sarah and I said, hey, what kind of program can we put together for Special Operations Command Africa? Not only the guys that are in my command, but the guys that come over for 6-month tours into Africa. Can we, how can we help them, and this, that, and the other
Is
thing?
Sarah,
So,
is Sarah the specialist, the doc?
yeah, Sarah McNary, she was a nurse. And so we figured it out. And um, we started seeing that this program that we put together was really having a great effect. And we started getting feedback from family members. And I led the way by saying, I have post-traumatic stress. I have TBI. I have sleep disorder. I had pain management issues. This is what I did. This is where I am now. My wife would talk about it. My senior enlisted advisor, Master Chief Puglisi, he had the same issues I had, Navy SEAL, same issues I had, went and got treatment. We both would talk about it. And from the top down, we'd say, hey, listen, we got this program. 3 days, launch stool, you'll get diagnosed, you'll get your records updated, everything will be put in there, and you'll get put on a treatment program, and one that's flexible so that you don't have to get taken off a team. And I promise you that I will back you up and no one will take you off a team. No one will do anything. Well, my lawyer comes to me and said, hey, sir, you can't make that promise because that's not what DOD policy says. And I go, I don't give a shit what DOD policy says. I am doing it this way. And if they want to relieve me of duty, fine. Well, I got a call from 3 and 4-star generals telling me to knock it off. And I told them, well, is that a direct order? Are you telling me not to provide assistance to the men and women in my command? Medical assistance, mental, physical, spiritual? Is that what you're telling me? Well, no, that's not what we're telling you. And I said, okay, well, then I'm going to continue to do it. Well, it's not going to bode well for you. And I go, well, I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for the men and women of my command and their families, because we're at a point now where, I've experienced 3 suicides in my unit, previous units. I'm not going to do it here. And I did have a suicide, 3rd Special Forces Sergeant First Class, who on the day before he was getting back on a plane to go from Kenya back to Fort Bragg, he went out to the range with his pistol, sat down in a chair, and shot himself in the head because the thought of going home was more painful than he could deal with. And I was like, no, we can't have this happen. This is just wrong. We can prevent this. And my suicide ideations went down to nothing, absolutely zero. Sexual harassment in the workplace went down. We saw over 26 months all this positive stuff. But I could not get special operations community at the higher levels, 4-star level, 3-star level, to buy off on it.
And did they ever, sir, or is
No.
it still?
No, the guy they sent in to replace me as SOC Africa commander when I finished my 26 months in command was told to not support the program, and they even took it out on Sarah McNary and undermined her career as well. She's now here. She's now in Massachusetts working for the VA in Massachusetts, doing the same kind of stuff and doing great stuff.
You guys are lucky.
And so, but we still have special operation guys that could be benefiting from this program. It didn't cost anything, right? And it was inside the medical system, so there wasn't any additional cost. It was flexible. I had guys in Niger that were getting counseling for their PTS and their TBI via Skype back at a doctor in launch stool. Come on. I did it a couple times when I was in Africa, and I was still getting my treatment for post-traumatic stress and TBI, and we fixed people's balance. Can you imagine? Your balance is off, and you're doing fast rope onto a building, and you get across from one building to another on a plank, and your balance is off. You're a hazard, right? Or you're self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. I started asking questions when guys would get alcohol-related incidents and drug-related incidents. Okay, time out. Is this indiscipline? Is this because this guy just is, hooked on drugs or whatever, or this, that, and the other thing with the alcohol, or is this because he's using this to self-medicate for something that we should have given him treatment for? And if it was the latter, I didn't ruin their career. I didn't give them a general officer letter reprimand. I put them in treatment. I fixed them, right? But if you're just a dumbass and you drank too much and, You went out and got in trouble. Hey, that's on you. Different level of accountability, right?
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
so, I mean, this.
I could tell you the waking up at 3:05, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, go downstairs, make a pot of coffee because I just gave up, and
Hmm.
that's it, and start writing. And writing was my therapy. And then I truly, I'm a Czech airman now. I'm an instructor, and one of the guys that I look up to the most is a peer of mine, Perry Brown. And
Hmm.
Perry and I were on a 24-hour layover in Antigua, all inclusive, really nice. Imagine beautiful beaches. And Perry's an Air Force C-130 guy as well, Marine 130 guys. We got that commonality. But that night we started talking, and we had probably had a few too many drinks because it was open bar and just sitting there. And I don't know, but the questions he asked were the right questions, which sparked something inside of me. And this is in '08 after Iraq was '05, '06,
Hmm.
Afghanistan '08, and I went back in '09. And that I just started bawling and I started
Hmm.
crying like a baby. And everyone around us, I mean, poor Perry, he's looking at people like it's all right. And I am on his shoulder crying. They probably
Hmm.
thought it was two gay lovers breaking up or
Yeah.
whatever. But here we both are, and I'm just bawling, and all this stuff that had welled up inside of me for years
Right.
just came boiling to the top. And I went back to the room. I remember, being embarrassed, extremely embarrassed. But I woke up the next morning and I literally felt like 1,000 pounds had lifted off my shoulders. I felt like a new man,
Hmm.
and I've never looked back. And that one night I can say was the tipping point that changed my life. Um,
Yep.
and everybody needs. So if you're out there and you're listening to me and you have any sort of, if there's doubt, there's no doubt. Go seek
Hmm.
help. Go find a brother and sit down and talk to them. You could be sitting around the campfire in your backyard, bonfire, and just let the stuff come out, and you'll find it just does amazing jobs. But that's
It
what we
is.
need, and so
It is.
that's
It
what
is.
we need.
I mean, that's why you mentioned Truth to Power. That's my leadership course um, that I put together. Um, it was an LLC which I put on hold while I run for office. But I'd go around and talk about leadership. I also talked about post traumatic stress. I've gone around to a lot of law enforcement agencies to talk to them, their leaders and their people, on how to take care of themselves and how to respond to post traumatic stress. And that's a big problem in our police departments across the country. But it's also something that is in New Hampshire as well. 33 more than 33% of our state troopers are um,
Military
veterans,
vets.
right? With
Mhm.
combat veterans, right?
And you're a police
And
officer right now, aren't you?
I am a police officer, right? Yes.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I went through the police academy at 59 years old. Never thought I'd
Second
be a
time, right?
recruiter
You
again,
didn't do
but
it
I
right
am.
the
I
first
was.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second time, right. I went
Yeah,
through
second.
class 4 in 1980. And in 2021, I went through class 281.
Oh, nice. Well,
So,
this is a pitch for you. What you see wrong up in our nation and in our country, but something that you're running for office, and something that resonates with me that you said is we've got to stop having the polarization between the two parties. I mean, I've got my friends that are
mhm,
leftists. I've got my friends that are very liberal minded, and I don't care. I mean, we'll have discussions and whatnot, but I don't beat them up and I don't attack them verbally. It's just uh, you're never going to win that on social media anyway. But
mhm,
I like your idea. You true reach across. If you get elected, you are representing everybody in your great state,
that's
not
right.
just not just the party, but
Mhm,
everybody. So, what would you
that's
like
correct.
to? Yes, sir. What would you like to talk about that? I'm going to put you on solo and let you give your pitch to your constituents out there.
Sure. So my platform is simple. It's God, family, community, country. And I wouldn't be here today without God. And I think many of us that have had problems in our life have gone to God first. I know I've talked to many people with, traumatic situations or addiction or what have you. And God has been a mainstay in their life. And I think that we've taken God out of the public square in our country over the last 60 years, and it's been a detriment. It's negatively affected our families and our family institution, which I believe is the most important institution. We've undermined our education system, public education system, as a result.
Right.
And therefore, our communities are weak. And we have a political system that is so divisive that tears us apart limb from limb. And if we haven't seen it over these last 2 years, we're never going to see it. And it's just wrong. We have career politicians who are serving themselves and not the people that they've been elected to serve. And that has to change as well. And I think we need more people who are servant leadership minded, that have dedicated their lives to public service, and most importantly, dedicated their lives to something they believe is bigger than themselves, and that's the values and principles of this great nation, given to us by God, embodied in our Declaration of Independence, and underwritten by a constitution that establishes a republic, a constitutional republic that's second to none. And I've been in many countries of this world. I've been all over the place. And on America's worst day, I would take this country over any other country in the world and any other government in the world. And I think we've forgotten that. And we need to be reminded that God, family, community, and country is important. And we need to come together over those things that make us strong: economy, fiscal responsibility, and the safety and security of Americans. It's very, very simple. And I'm running to represent all 1.3 million people in the state of New Hampshire and Americans, to do the right thing so that we can all prosper and live life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, so that our children will grow up in a country that's free. They will get a great education. We will prepare them for the challenges of life, and they will be successful. That's about the future. This is about our children now. And, we got to start focusing on that. And I don't think that we can stand here, regardless of our party, Republican, Independent, Democrat, or Libertarian, and say that this country is moving in the right direction, that what's going on in this country is going to lead this country to be better, which is always our goal, is to be better than we were yesterday. I just don't think we can, we can make that judgment. And so we got to come together and fix this and change it and move it in a different direction. And it's going to take different people who are not career politician minded and understand that when you're in a public servant position, you work for the people and not the other way around. And so I've thrown my name in the hat to be a United States Senator, running against Maggie Hassan. And my guys told me to ask anyone listening to this, you want to write a check for $20.22 and send it to Don Bolduc for U.S. Senate, feel free to do so. Go to my website, donbolduc.com. 2022, let's start to make a difference for our children and our grandchildren.
Well, I sent some money to you last week, and I hope everybody out there, if you're looking for good, solid leaders, like I titled this, The Pillars of Strength, you, sir, represent the pillars. And I look at people up there in, especially, AOC, for example, and these people that are drastically trying to change the way my kids will live in this country. I mean, look at what's going on up north in our neighbors in Canada. It's amazing to me how Justin Trudeau has basically turned into a dictator.
It's
when he's backed into
unbelievable.
Yeah,
That's my lineage. My family came from Canada, right?
Did they?
Bolduc, however you want to pronounce it, wherever you're from in Canada, one of the two ways. I mean, we came from Canada in 1899 and established a farm down here, and in New Hampshire, and now we have problems on both borders that need to be fixed, and it's all about freedom and rights, and it's unbelievable to me to watch the prime minister up there do what he's doing with that government. And I'm behind the truckers in Canada, and I'm behind the truckers here in America.
Damn, Skippy.
You
Yes,
know,
sir. Now, what's your take on Ukraine?
well, hey, the Ukraine. I don't want a ground war in the Ukraine, but I think that once again the Biden administration has mishandled Putin, and they weren't tough enough with him early enough with deterrence. And our diplomacy is weak because of Afghanistan. And you can't say it's not. They look at us and they see a weak national security team across the board, and they're willing to take advantage of it. And they've empowered China, North Korea, and Iran. Iran is not contained now. Neither is North Korea. China's doing whatever it wants to do all over the world. Heck, they just signed a Silk Road trade deal in Cuba. Are you kidding me? Why did we let that happen? We should never have let that happen. That is a
Well, they bought all the mineral rights. They had all the mineral rights over in Afghanistan when I was there in 2008.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, our skinny boys on top of the embassy had all their antennas pointed at the Chinese embassy over there, trying to intercept stuff. I know that.
So Ukraine, we haven't positioned ourselves strategically to deter anything. He's playing chess. We're playing checkers. It's a disaster. Is he going to go? Is he not going to go? It's up to him. Is he going to go in the eastern part? Is he going to go up to Kyiv? Who knows? That's up to him. But, he's holding the cards, and we're reacting to him. And we have nothing in place to do anything. And he basically knows it. He keeps enough pressure there. He wants Zelensky out, and he wants to put a president in there that's pro-Russian. If he does that, there's no need for an invasion, right? And we lose again because all the democracy and everything that Ukraine has worked towards is going to go away. And Ukraine, that place has all kinds of minerals, uranium and lithium and all kinds of stuff. And oh, by the way, if they saw their agricultural potential with the arable land that they have, they could feed 600 million people a year.
Well, don't worry, sir.
It's got a lot to offer.
Putin's shaking in his boots because somebody sent him a copy of the CRT PowerPoint. He's scared. Don't worry about it. We got it.
That's right. He's shaking in his boots.
He's shaking.
This is what they're teaching their kids and their military.
Yeah. That video that came out not too long ago where the Russian military guy gets up, and I mean, this guy is eating nails, raining on him, getting beat, big buff dude. And then you see our generals wearing high heels to understand the feminism of whatever. It's a military. I think if you run for president, please never, ever put our guys in a situation where we're nation building again. That is absolute BS. I'm tired of going in, destroying a place. We're trained to destroy. Let us do our job, destroy the place, and we're not rebuilding it. If Mitch Bell was president or dictator, I would have had the buffs over there chasing the guys up in Tora Bora Mountains, destroyed every living thing that was military-wise, and then left, and then said, hey, if you guys do it again, we will find you. We will have ISR assets just circling. I will find you. I will take you out of the gene pool. That's it. How many?
We're a nation that is looked at with ineffective leadership. We're looked at as weak. We're looked at as a country that doesn't keep its word and that is not consistent with the values and ethics that it espouses. We got to enact those things. We need stronger leadership. We need peace through strength. That might be, a cliche term, but it is so appropriate everywhere you go. Peace through strength. You have to have strength. And that's the only thing that the enemies that we're dealing with today understand. And let's not forget the proliferation of violent extremist organizations that's going on in Africa and in other places in the world. That's also a huge danger to the safety and security of Americans and to our allies. So there's a lot of problems out there, and we need different people. We need strong leaders. We need people that are going to listen. We need people that are less concerned about what party you're from, and more concerned about your character and integrity, and less concerned about your money and your power, and that kind of stuff that's undermined this great nation. So,
Well, I wish you Godspeed and luck to getting that change, because you've got the experience to win hearts and minds, and I hope that you're able to. I mean, I miss Ronald Reagan, and I miss the ability to work through
Ronald
parties.
Reagan did it with Tip O'Neill.
Yep.
Gingrich did it with Clinton. We haven't been able to come together since then, right?
No.
So let's
Well, I've got a couple people. Here's somebody that knows you. Timothy Molino. He's an Army.
Yes, I know Tim. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Tim's part of our RTAG program. Great man.
I owe Tim a phone call. I'll be calling you, Tim. I'm sorry.
And Fahim is he's a Hollywood actor who is a Afghan immigrant. I had him on my show.
Dying to meet him.
I will do the introduction between you two, because he actually said that he wanted to, tell the colonel, tell the general. Here we go. Thank you for service, birth country. We Afghan love you. I will get you two hooked up. I promise you that. And
awesome.
Dave Funk, the bread was cooked. It was. And this is, I never had this problem. Doxy leads to the same wild dreams. I never had that issue. It was just.
You didn't?
No. The Doxy didn't give me weird dreams.
I had weird dreams. I had weird dreams on the Doxy, baby. Yeah, yeah.
I only had weird dreams when I first got there because of the high altitude and your brain. Got to take some aspirin. It would thin my blood out. Lynn Gulig is a Marine fighter pilot, and now Third World War DoD forces getting out. Coronavirus vaccine really doesn't do.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing that's going on right now. I've been fighting against it tooth and nail, right? I've been sending letters. I've been, talking about it on the campaign trail. I've been asking our governor here to protect our National Guardsmen from this stuff. My son, who's been in the National Guard for over 5.5 years, getting ready to get out in June, was looking down the wrong end of a other than honorable discharge because he won't get the dang shot.
That's Zach. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I've been fighting it. I'm just against it, right? I'm against mandates, anyways. I'm for medical freedom, and I don't think that the military has a leg to stand on to suggest that there's an operational requirement for a COVID shot.
No, I mean, how many people in the military have died? If you're a young, healthy guy or girl, you're gonna. It's.
I've gotten COVID twice. I'm fine, right? You got it 3 times.
3 times, yes, sir. First time last year, 2 weeks, full deal. Next time, April, 3 days. I thought it was I cut the grass. I thought it was sinuses.
Yeah.
And then we had Omicron. My parents got it. My in-laws got it. Everyone got it. But
got to let the body fight these things, right? And when people say, well, why do you care? Because, you're in the military, you got all kinds of shots. But you know what? The shots that the military gave me were shots that specifically prevented me from getting stuff, right?
Well, what about the anthrax series, though? That was.
Except for that series. That was a bad series, and we know it's a bad series. So I agree with that. It caused some problems. It was not good. So with the exception of the anthrax, I get hepatitis shots, I get tuberculosis, I got the typhoid. I never got any of that stuff, right? But it's not the same thing with this. There's no operational requirement for it. Heck, as the SOC Africa commander, I was sending, myself and many of my guys into Ebola environments.
Right.
We know how to operate. People know how to operate. You got to trust people, common sense. Tell them what to do. Tell them how to do it, and you'll be much better off than having the government control it. It does
Right.
never works. Anything the government controls or tries to do,
No,
it's
doesn't work.
it's never cost efficient and it's never effective.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. I spoke to Bob Patterson. He's Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam today, and I asked him the same question I'm going to ask you. Who in your time in the military is the person? So, here's Bob, a Medal of Honor recipient. And I asked him, who was your hero? Who was the guy that was in the background doing all the same stuff, running around doing all the hard work, and is out there right now? Who is your hero, sir? It's a tough question.
Well, it's
Who
a
is it?
tough question because
I know you have many. There's
there's
many.
a there, there's a number of them that are out there right now. But I think the guy that comes to mind what is my brother. I have two brothers that were in the military.
Mhm.
One was an officer like me, and the other one was my number two brother. I'm the oldest. AJ is what we call him in the family. John is what he's known by. He retired as a master sergeant, but he was a quintessential non-commissioned officer. Always there. He lived the NCO creed. If you were to take the NCO creed and put it in a blender and blender it up, my brother would come out, right? And so, he was always physically fit, always there, always leading the way, always exemplifying, discipline, regimentation, and doing the right things. He participated in the best ranger competition when he was an RI at Ranger School.
Mhm.
I was going through the infantry officer advanced course and went down to be a guest lane walker with my brother, and my brother Dave was going through Ranger School. So that was funny, right?
Oh yeah.
And so, we had a good time there. But he was just always doing the right thing. And
Is he still with us?
he is.
Good.
He is now. He now works in Virginia. He works for an organization that is responsible for providing security. The personal security for the State Department and other government agencies when they go into harm's way where they need that kind of PSD. He's the vice president of training there. He's been doing that for quite a while.
Like the
And
boys in
he went
Benghazi.
from a PSD guy on the ground in Afghanistan, where when I was battalion commander, he was PSD for the ambassador. So two different ambassadors, under two different ambassadors, they would come out to visit me, and my brother would be right there in the room with me because he was his personal security guard, his handler. And then
What
of
year
course
was
they
this,
had
sir?
their outer security for him, so that was pretty cool.
What
But
year was this?
I'd say he's a hero of mine.
What year was he the PSD for the ambassador? Do you remember?
2005 to 2007.
Okay.
And those were both because I had 2 9-month rotations with 6 months off in between as battalion commander. And so both times I went back, he was there, two different ambassadors.
Now, are you going on Fox tomorrow morning to talk about
I am.
Ukraine?
8
So
a.m.
that's at 8 a.m. So everybody can get to hear the
Fox
general
and
on
friends.
Fox. That's going to be awesome. Tell Brian, those guys, I said hello.
All right.
The last question I have for you, you see all the junk in the background here. It means something. Every military guy has man cave, and
Yep.
they've got stuff that means the most to them. Like if you go up and you ask me which book to pull off the shelf, it's going to be my go-to is With the Old Breed by E.B.
Uh-huh.
Sledge. And I
Yep.
have an original issue signed by him to my mentor, James Missioner. So, what behind you is your go-to book that you have behind you there, sir?
Well, I got to tell you, the book that I go to quite a bit is The Lions of Kandahar, written by Rusty Bradley, who was a detachment commander of mine on the ground during Operation Medusa, and he turned around and wrote a book. And he highlights some men in that book that I have a tremendous, tremendous amount of respect for, and to this day. And I just love going to that book and opening it up, and it's a signed copy from him,
Mhm.
and just reading a couple of pages of it that I've already read, and it it just warms my heart.
I have not read that, so that's on my reading list now.
Lions of Kandahar. It's a very, very well written book by Rusty, good officer, and he had great men in his charge. Jared Hill was his company commander. Jared's now a captain in the sheriff's department, runs the special ops division
Cool.
down in the county where Tampa's at. The county always escapes me, but Jared Hill is a great guy. And he flew up for my graduation, as a matter of fact, from the New Hampshire Police Academy. So it was
Well, that
great
is
to see
awesome.
him again. And I'm calling him sir. He's captain in police, in the sheriff's department. I'm saluting him.
Uh, That's funny. Well, I got to tell you, as a Marine, I served this joint tour with the Army, and I I had General Cone, God rest his soul, was my
Yes, God
boss
bless him.
over in Seasticka. He was a 2-star at the time, and General McChrystal. Both my awards are
Aha.
signed by those guys. July 4th. It's hard to see, but
Hey, there you go.
July 4th, General McChrystal signed that one,
Yeah,
and then Bob
that's
Cohn
awesome.
did. Yeah, I tried to get it. Bob Cohn did the other one, but my pride and joy, I've got a coin box up behind me. My pride and joy is literally running Petraeus over, and he gave me a coin. Um, General Petraeus was coming around the corner. It was a 90-degree corner. I am late for a meeting. I'm rushing. Come tearing butt around the corner, and I hit him, and I knock him right on his butt, and
Oh
his
man.
sergeant major was standing behind him, and I looked down, I go, "Holy shit!" And I reached down with my arm, and I grab him, yank him up, and
Yeah,
I'm like, "General, I am so sorry." And he
yeah.
looks me up and down, and he's like, "In a rush there, Lieutenant Colonel Bell?" And I'm like, "Sir, I'm not in a rush to run you over. I am so sorry about that. They need to put one of those mirrors up here. We'd see traffic coming around the corner." And then we just started talking. And I go, "Sir, I got to tell you something. Big fan. And my parents, they're even bigger fans." And he goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, they were in the gallery when you were testifying. And when the Code Pink people came in, my dad, who's a Vietnam vet, swift boat guy, he was ready to go full barbarian on these Code Pink people that were trying to interrupt your
Yeah.
thing." And he turned around to Sergeant Major and goes, "Sergeant Major, you got some coins?" And so he coined me this, and then he gave me a second one. He said, "Send that home to your mom and dad and tell them thanks." So my parents have one. I have one. It's one of
Oh,
my
that's awesome.
and it was like I said, hanging out with the Army guys. I was, 12 Marines were assigned on this joint deal, and I served with the
Mhm.
82nd. I served with the 101st. Loved them all. I met all sorts of. I got opportunities that I probably never would have had in a normal Marine
Yeah.
command, and got to be President Karzai's. I got tasked to go to the fields as an air guy to do the evaluations for the different places he would have to fly to. Ended up getting him on an aircraft carrier.
Hmm.
We got him out there, but I didn't get to go. I rotated. It got canceled because something happened. I don't know. We blew up a wedding party or something happened. I didn't get to go. My boss, Colonel Palmer, got to go. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
God, man, I wanted to go out there. And now he's a hooker. So if you ever run into President Karzai, you can tell him he's a hooker because he caught the hook on the aircraft carrier. But
There you
sir,
go.
sir, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program. It's an hour and a half, an hour and 40, but it feels like about 15 minutes. You're a very engaging person. I really pray that you win this and we get
Thank
you in
you.
office. I have the utmost respect. I've been interviewing a bunch of people who are running for office. I have so much respect for you guys because, like, if I Google your name and I see something negative, I know that you're doing a good job because
Hmm.
they're trying to beat you. But I could not put up with somebody disparaging my family or coming up with some BS deal, trying to say I said something out of context or whatever. I'd go Marine on them. I'd start and I just probably would not be good. But I am happy that there are gentlemen like you, sir, that will make this happen. And we need more. Like after World War II, how many people in Congress and Senate or in our government had veterans service? I don't care what party.
Hmm.
We had a ton. And then they all kind of faded away and retired. And then we got people with no experience.
Over
So we need
70% of
people.
Congress in 1973 were veterans. Today, it's 17%.
Yeah.
And
It's
it
crazy.
shows.
Well, you're going to be up there. You're going to run into Ronnie Jackson. Do you know that name?
I sure do.
All
Hmm.
right. Ronnie Jackson was my running buddy when I was in Iraq. Literally, I figured if I go out and run 5 miles with this guy and I get hit by the sniper over in Haditha
Hmm.
um, or Habaniya,
You're with the doc.
I'm with the doc. He's a trauma surgeon. He ended up being President Bush's trauma surgeon, Obama for 8 years, Trump for a couple years.
Hmm.
So I love that guy. Now he's up there. So you'll be able to go see him.
He is there. He ran out of Florida, right?
No, no, no. He's Texas with me. He's a Texas
Texas.
boy.
Oh, he's Texas. Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir. He's in the next. I can't vote for him, but I can sure go out and raise money and help him.
Oh, that's
But
great.
listen, if you're ever down here in Fort Worth, Texas, I promise you will have a blast. I will take you out for barbecue, take you for a ride in my armor. That's why I asked you to like armor. Come on, I like armor. 8 tons of fun
Oh
right
man,
there.
that'll be great to ride around in.
Oh yeah, we'll put you and your wife Sharon up there. We'll go drive around, go
The
hit
odds of me being in
Whataburger.
Fort Worth are pretty high because I have a very good friend, Dave Roberts, that lives down in Fort Worth, whose son was killed in action.
Mm.
And I've been down there to speak at their high school and honor and remembrance. Uh, and um, and he's just a great guy. So I will be down there to see him again. So I look forward to seeing you as well, Taco. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
all you do um, as well. What you do is
Uh,
very, very important, and I couldn't do what you do. So thanks.
I appreciate this. This is a hobby. It's just fun, and I enjoy talking to folks. Hey, sir, if I'm going to bring you off, if you hang around for a minute, I'll sign off, and then I know Gene Pugh is patiently waiting. We have
Sure.
uh, Gene Pugh was on the show, Vietnam Special Forces, one of my good friends, and I want to thank Dave Funk out there for my rat bastard because I always say that dirty rat bastard. That's my favorite go-to slogan. Anyway, you guys hold on a second, General, and I'll be right with you. Hey, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Tall Tales with Taco with General Bolduc. I tell you what, if you have a chance, like he said, $20, 22 cents. I got on his website, literally pulled the credit card out, sent the money, and any and every little bit helps to go to these guys' campaigns. All right. I hate to ask, I'm asking. It's a hard ask. You got $5, give them $5. You got $10. Any of these people, it's going to make a difference in their campaigns. And that's what we need. We need leadership like that in office, running our government so that we can turn the ship around, fix that rudder. Anyway, until next week, adios, hasta luego, auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, sheshini, au revoir. Domo arigato gozaimasu, shinde kudasai, ciao, rivedici, tashikur. Nostostrovia, das Vidania. I'll do that. How about that? You guys have a great one, and we will catch up with you next week. Until then, see ya. God bless.